Okay, so yes, Obelia, I think the question actually leads to the initiative very directly for our project because the focus of our project is how to engage youth in community engagement. And a really big focus point for the project is enhancing the health and well-being of young people in intermediary cities of India, as well as two other countries where this Young Game Changers initiative is. So, first of all, to introduce myself, my name is Adishree. I work as a project officer in UN Habitat at the India country office, and I'm based out of Delhi. So, really early morning here, but it's such exciting conversations, and I'm really glad to be part of this session. So, about the initiative, Young Game Changers Initiative is a project which is being led by UN Habitat and it's being funded by the foundation partner. And we work in partnership with a lot of basically local entities as well as municipalities and municipal governments in the different countries where we're associated. We also have a partnership with the World Health Organization, who actually help us with the health component of this project. One of the main, basically, I would say, the objectives of the project, there are three aspects. One is on youth governance. So, how do we strengthen governance frameworks to advance the health and well being of young people? So, involve them directly in the governance frameworks. The second is giving them the voice and agency through digital skilling, giving an understanding of digital tools and applications that they can utilize to be engaged in urban governance. And thirdly is how to develop inclusive public spaces by utilizing the knowledge that they've gained and by basically leveraging the kind of data that they would have collected directly, and also sort of support the local governments in delivering public spaces that are youth friendly, safe, accessible, and this is all sort of supported by the data that would have been collected by the community members. We are placed under the SDG goal 11, which focuses a lot on cities and especially on the indicator 11.7, which is on providing universal access to safe and inclusive public spaces, particularly for women, children, older persons, and persons with disabilities. We are currently placed in three cities across the globe. So the one that I would be mostly focusing on is in the city of Jatni, which is and we work with the Jatni municipality as well as the state level government, which is the urban development department. In Armenia, again, they work with the university as well as the municipality of Armenia. And then thirdly, we have Barni, which is in Senegal, where they work with the municipality of Barni and with the NGO of Sunu. So focusing a little bit more on the process, it's a project which is spread across 3 years. I know it's a little pixelated, the diagram, but I'll also share links to the project right after this so you can have a look. But the main objective is to basically mobilize stakeholders and mobilize whom we call young game changers to be associated with the project and develop also labs, which could be learning labs, which can sustain the impact of the project. So create basically young game changers labs, which are housed with the municipalities, with the local governments, with the local entities, which can act as like a learning hub and also like a dynamic youth environment where the learning would continue and they would take charge of how their public spaces are developed. So first and foremost, how did this Young Game Changers project even come to play? It was announced at the World Urban Forum, which happened 2 years ago in Poland. And so Foundation Botnar and UN Habitat opened up a call for cities. It was a global call. Any city could apply. And on the basis of their applications, they were selected. So the three cities that I said, so their applications were selected. And once this basically project kickstarted in each of the projects, a lot of the stakeholders who would be involved in the ecosystem of developing public spaces or in the ecosystem of developing or enhancing the health and well-being of young people were mobilized and were sort of had like a bit of a buy-in into the project to work actively through the project process. And we also then engaged young game changers who would basically be associated with the project very actively throughout the process. In Jatni, we have recruited 15 candidates from the community of Jatni itself. So they are from the neighborhoods of Jatni. They went through a proper competitive process of giving group discussions, doing interviews, and sort of discussions with the Jatni municipality officials in how they could be associated with the project. And it's almost like a fellowship for them, I would say, like for a year-long fellowship where they are working along, doing different learning modules, doing different data collection processes. And we also established the Young Game Changers Lab in Jatni. So Jatni municipality was very kind enough to hand over a portion of their town hall building, which you see the green building in the back behind all of us, is their town hall building, where on the ground floor they have their own general auditorium where they have their own community events. But the first and second floor were basically have been adapted into like a lab where we would conduct a lot of learning studios, we would host workshops. This is where they would sit on their laptops and work on their daily sessions. So, how are we progressing through the Young Game Changers project? Is through the series of what we call as co-working studios, in which they would progressively learn different skills as they go through the learning modules. So it's almost like a year-long course that they're following, where they're learning different skills, where they're picking up different things. And along each co-working studio, we're also associating with different partners who can help us in the process, including in Habit Place, and they sit in the site-specific assessment co-working studio, which I'll go into a little bit. So this is the progress that we are at, all of us. So we are currently in the Minecraft co-working studio. I'll go into a bit of detail in the next few slides as well. So if you see, Jatni has currently completed a lot of its citywide assessments and also its site-specific assessments, meaning we have assessed a lot of the public spaces in Jatni and shortlisted some public spaces for intervention and designing. So giving a little more detail on the kind of digital skills that they've been gathering, including Kobo Toolbox, which is again a data collection, basically application, and then Miro Board, which is a data visualization tool where you can work together to understand the pros and cons of everything that you have done, also visualize, put together maps. And then, of course, we've been involved in Habit Place as well. And for identification of basically the challenges that are faced in terms of health and well-being, a lot of site visits were conducted across the public spaces in Chetney, and we involved a lot of community groups in the process. For instance, we have self-help groups, which are women-led groups, and representatives from each of the neighborhoods would be part of these self-help groups. So basically involving women groups, involving young people, and also the elected representatives of each of these neighborhoods and wards, as we call them. Kind of just giving a snapshot of what the young people themselves highlighted as the kind of mental health or like the public space challenges that affect their mental and physical health. So they said that they face problems of unhygienic food vending. They say that there is a little bit of a drug abuse problem in public spaces, so the substance abuse that's happening amongst young people. Young girls felt like they were not feeling too safe in the public spaces that were in their neighborhoods. So these are the kind of challenges that they sort of provided through these group discussions and stakeholder consultations that would then be fed into basically the selection of the public spaces itself. So how did we shortlist kind of public spaces that we would then ultimately do interventions on? We used Kobo Toolbox to collect basically data from 20 public spaces in Chetney, and it was collected against different categories of data assessment. And the Young Game Changers basically went to the streets, went to the public spaces to collect the data through their phone applications. The five kind of categories that we were assessing. One was, how is the space being used? Who is using the space? Accessibility of the space. Is it basically, are pregnant women able to access the space or not? Then the third was seeing the kind of furniture that is existing within those spaces. How are they being maintained? Are they in good conditions? Then we looked at the safety and comfort. Does this public space have a bad smell associated to it? Is there a lot of trash which is being seen? And then finally, what is a kind of like green cover that we can experience in the public space? So these are the five dimensions that have been developed by the UN Habitat team as well on basically identifying what makes a good public space. And this is what was assessed in each of the public spaces in Jatni as well. And we also identified spatial boundaries within which everything could be assessed, because for us, a good public space would be something that has easy access to you. You can walk over, you can play there, and it's in your neighborhood with no problems of reaching to the space. So a lot of this data, I'll just skip through basically the visualization. I'll share a link as well. A lot of this data was then visualized and developed into maps and also built into basically a young data hub, which is now an open source dashboard, which is publicly available on the Young Game Changers website. So this is all the data that was collected with the municipality and also by the young people, as well as by partners of the project. So this now feeds into this young data hub that I'm talking about. And each of these cities is doing the same exercise. So we have a very rich database that is available for the citywide assessment. And it's like almost like a for crowdsourcing of data of the public spaces. Then how did we prioritize the two spaces? We actually launched an online campaign in which the community members and young people could vote for two of the public spaces out of the 20 public spaces that they felt really needed the change. That they felt that, okay, these two public spaces is something other places where we really need to bring about improvement. So we launched like an online campaign. The Young Game Changers went to the households and sort of took votes. It was also an online survey. And on the basis of this, two sites were shortlisted where we actually conducted the Inhabit Place data collection to go in depth into the site specific assessment. We tried to understand the kind of pattern of movement. We tried to understand what was sort of the gender usage pattern across the day. We also tried to understand what would be, through interviews, we tried to understand what would be the expectations of the community members or the residents living around the two sites that were then shortlisted. So this is just some of the visuals of the data that was collected through Inhabit Place, what kind of perceptions that the community members had. So this is the first site. We took inventory of the current condition. And as you can see, all the young people are sort of getting into the process very well. They're picking on to the inventory, they're drawing, sort of assessing on what exists and what is missing, and giving their observations into the Inhabit Place tool. And yeah, so this is for the site two. Similarly, a lot of the modes were then captured through the data collection by the young game changers themselves. We also tried to understand if there was accessibility features. Basically, the stage that we're at now, after the two sites that were selected, we've now launched into designing for those spaces. So with young people involvement, you need to keep it exciting. So the software that we're using for designing, I wouldn't say technical design, but I would say creative designing with the community members and with basically the young people is on Minecraft, which is actually a general video game software that anybody can use. So we have partnerships with UN Habitat has now associated itself with Microsoft and Mojang to sort of adapt Minecraft, the application, into building for community spaces and designing for community spaces. So there are certain versions and models that are then taught to the young people to sort of build. So if you see, you're seeing snippets of some co-working and co-designing workshops that were conducted with the community members and with different age groups. So if you see like an elderly woman trying to understand what is Minecraft, and then seeing how that site looks on Minecraft, and then what features can be added on. So these kind of co-design workshops were then conducted with the community members and the residents living near the two sites. And the young game changers were basically co-facilitating these sessions with us. So this is some of the visuals of how it looks on Minecraft. And I think we just saw the inventory on Inhabit Place. And if you see, they really captured how the site could look. This is a game. So they really captured how the site could look if they were to design it actually. So they actually gained some technical skills on public space design as well. And a lot of the features were then added on. And they also connected it to, say, for instance, having it, say, like a toilet block, or say having an open gym, or having like different features that they wanted to see in the site. And so these kind of imagery sort of was created. And so these code design workshops is what we have recently concluded. And this is the process that we're at. So now we'll be moving on to the expert design studio, the co-working studio, where we are actually inviting an architecture design studio to come in, look at the community priorities, look at the community designs, and then convert that into basically the architectural drawings required to update the public spaces, have a lot of validation meetings, have a lot of discussions with the municipality to understand the practicality of the creative suggestions that the community members may have basically suggested. And ultimately, now we'll also be launching into a participatory budgeting process where we would put these models that we are sort of collating, we would put one comprehensive model per site into a participatory budgeting template that is being developed by UN Habitat team under the YGI, where community members can actually then vote for the kind of interventions that they finally would like to prioritize within a budget limit. So ceiling amount would be provided within this online template, and they would try to understand what is the costing aspect, what is the interventions, how much would it take, and how much money would be required to actually do interventions, and the voting would take place accordingly. And then these sort of, I would say, results of the participatory budgeting would then be submitted with the municipality, and they would then have a validation meeting with the committee members to then confirm which interventions they would be going across, and the architectural design studio will be working in tandem with them to develop the designs, and we would be working into going into the implementation phase next year. So yeah, this actually ends my presentation here. But just to say that in terms of the process, we have a lot of I mean, the project is not without its limitations, because when working with bureaucratic processes, it takes a lot of time. But and working with young people, you have to keep them in like motivated to be involved in the different processes. But yeah, it's been, I think, a great learning journey even for the partners who are involved, and we hope to see a really good public space design which actually matches with the priorities and the expectations of the community members next year.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Over
Thank you
to
so
you, Billy.
much. I love it. I love that whole process. And it does also reflect some of the Her City Toolbox processes from the public
Yeah.
space team at UN Habitat, which we'll have more. Tove's coming to speak to us on the 25th of November to talk more about that process as well. Awesome.
Absolutely.